It's being held not in the chambers, you can see in the House room, which are ultras and down in the chamber, and via Microsoft Teams on Monday, the 27th of January at 6 p.m. The meeting is not being live streamed, but is being recorded and will be made available to view via the council's website, except for discussion involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images or audio of those speaking will be publicly available to all via the council's website. Before we move on to the agenda, I would like to take a quick roll call. When your community council is announced, can you please confirm that you are present and give your name for the benefit of those viewing at home? So we're starting with the community councils. First one is Aber Valley.
We have apologies, Chair.
Bargoed.
Present, Howard Llewellyn.
That's Argoid, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said Bargoed.
Bargoed,
Wait a minute.
Apologies from Argoid, Chair.
Bargoed.
Howard Llewellyn, Bargoed Town Council.
Thank you. Bedford Johnson Macan.
Kevin Ingram present.
Blackwood Town.
I'm here. Kevin Etheridge.
Thank you, Kevin.
Sorry, Howard. Sorry, Howard, I couldn't pop over. Sorry.
Fine.
Kafiri Town.
Apologies, Chair.
Darren Valley.
Again, apologies, Chair.
Drayton, Waterloo and Mudbury.
Present, Kevin Ingram, I'm at Reserve and
Thank you.
as well. So
Yes, we get.
Kerry Mortimer,
Thank you. Rhymnach and Bwrdd Pant. Lassie Cummer, that's me. Nelson.
Yes. David, Community Councillor Davis.
New Tredegar.
Yeah, I'm present, and can I just say that Elunid Stenner asked me to pass on her apologies because she won't be able to attend.
John Pope is the new clerk at New Tredegar Community Council, and I spoke to him today, and he didn't know about the meeting tonight, but he sent his apologies.
Okay. Penrell, Kenneth and Annie Glenn.
Chair, I'm present, but I'm a member of Penrell, Kenneth and Glen Community Council, but I am actually here as a county council, I believe.
Thank you very much.
That's Councillor Wiggles.
Councillor Wiggles. Yeah. Romney.
Apologies, Chair.
Biscuit East. Biscuit Town.
Yeah, apologies from my councillors Mike Parker, Mike Weathering and Fionn Green.
And the van. And now for our county borough members. Councillor Alan Angel.
Present, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Robert Chapman. Yes, but yes, I can see. Councillor Pat Cook.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Kevin Etheridge. Yes.
present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anne Guile.
Present.
Councillor Colin Gordon.
Apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Ingram Jones.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Teresa Heron.
Present, Chair.
Councillor P Leonard.
Apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Amanda McConnell.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Teresa Parry.
Emma.
Thank you. Diolch. Councillor Judith Pritchard.
Emma Cadeirydd.
Thank you. Diolch. Councillor Carl Thomas.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Lindsay Whitlow.
I'm up.
Thank you, Diolch. Councillor Jay Winsley.
Apologies, Chair.
And Cabinet Member Councillor Nigel George.
I think you may be joining us slightly later.
Slightly later, is it? Okay, thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence. I think we've got one from every.
Yes, Chair, I've taken the roll call.
Okay. As announced during the roll call, please can you report any apologies in the meeting chat or via the committee services. Item number 2. Any declarations of interest. Councillor and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and or prejudicial interests in respect of any item of business on this agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Code of Practice for both councillors and officers. Are there any declarations? No? Okay, thank you. Item number 3. Can I introduce members to Steve Harris, the Head of Financial Services at Section 151, who will introduce the report regarding the draft budget proposals. Steve.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, for those of you who don't know me, Steve Harris, as Chair said, the Head of Finance in the Council. And this evening I have my deputy with me, Liaison, just to assist with any questions that you may have for us. So I'd like to start just by setting the scene really, and details of the 2025-26 Provisional Local Government Financial Settlement were released by WG on the 11th of December. The provisional settlement includes a number of adjustments to the baseline in respect of funding allocated during the current financial year to address in-year cost pressures in relation to pay and pension costs. And there have also been some transfers into the settlement of grants that was received in the current financial year. After building these adjustments into the settlement, the revised baseline has been uplifted across Wales by an average of 4.3% for the 2025-26 financial year. For your information, the level of increase for individual local authorities is determined by changes in a number of data sets that feed a funding formula. And for Caerphilly, there is a cash uplift of 4.6%, so marginally above the average across Wales of 4.3%. And this uplift, along with the adjustments to the baseline I just mentioned, provide the council with additional funding of 25.116 million. Whilst this is of course welcomed, the increase needs to be considered in the context of the financial challenge being faced by the council, with cost pressures totaling 65.897 million in 2025-26 alone. The draft budget proposals report presented to Cabinet on the 16th of January, which you have with you this evening, shows a savings requirement of 47.456 million for the 3-year period 2025-26 through to 2027-28. This highlights the fact that the financial position remains extremely challenging, despite the better than expected financial settlement. Whilst the draft budget proposals present a balanced financial position for 2025-26, an element of this continues to be achieved through one-off temporary measures, consisting of £3.118 million of temporary savings and a further call on reserves of 4.312 million. These temporary one-off measures total 7.431 million, which is significantly lower than the 22.073 million of temporary measures that were required to balance the budget for the current financial year. However, it is vital that further recurring savings are identified moving forward to ensure that there is no reliance on temporary measures from 2026-27 onwards. You'll also note from the report that the 2025-26 savings proposals include an in-year savings target of £5.3 million for the Council's Mobilising Team Caerphilly Transformation Programme. This will be delivered through projects that are currently in flight, and there is an expectation that further significant savings will be delivered in subsequent financial years once further projects have been prioritised for development and delivery. The situation moving forward remains very challenging, with a further savings requirement of 25.715 million anticipated for the 2-year period 2026-27 to 2027-28. However, after allowing for mobilising for these savings targets, 5.5 million for 2026-27 and 3.4 million for 2027-28, the residual savings requirement for the 2-year period reduces to 16.815 million. These figures demonstrate the urgency of progressing the in-flight projects in the Mobilising Teams for the Transformation Programme to meet the savings target. And it is clear that a number of other change projects will need to be developed, defined, approved and implemented to ensure that the residual savings requirement of 16.815 million for 2026-27 and 2027-28 can be met. Unfortunately, it is inevitable that further difficult decisions will need to be made, but I'm afraid that this is unavoidable in the current financial climate. So this evening is an opportunity for you to give your views on the draft budget proposals. These will be captured in the minutes of the meeting and shared with both Cabinet and Council as part of the budget consultation process prior to final decisions being made on the budget on the 27th of February. Leanne and I will do our best to deal with any questions that you may have on specific savings proposals, but where we do not have sufficient details to respond this evening, we will ensure that we liaise with the relevant head of service and responses will be circulated to all members of the committee outside of the meeting. And finally, if any of you wish to respond as individual councils, then please send your responses to Emma Sullivan for inclusion in the budget consultation report for Cabinet and Council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Steve. Now open the floor for questions. Thank you very much, Steve. Oh, right. Let's start again. Thanks, Steve. I will open the floor to questions and comments, which will be recorded by the Senior Community Services Officer and incorporated as part of the consultation process. Can you please use your hand up to indicate that you wish to speak, and I will take the question in strict order of invitation. Councillor Pritchard?
Yes, I do hope that all community councils will listen and respond to the invitation from Steve Harris to contribute to the budget response, because it's fairly important. It has to be borne in mind that even though obviously the council does have to make cuts and has to have a balanced budget, this is not the only way of doing it. We've been presented with a budget that is the result of choices that people have made, officers and the cabinet. So, and presumably the cabinet. So, you know, it's definitely worthwhile putting in your opinions, and there will be ways of changing the budget if there are any particular items that you don't like. So please respond. I've got 3 items. I might only be allowed 2, but the first one is rats. I do not believe that it's sensible to charge for rats at the rat treatment. At the moment, rat treatment is free of charge. We may only be one of the 3 councils, I think, Swansea and Blaenau Gwent, that don't charge, but I don't think that this is a good thing at all. Rats are very nasty animals that spread disease for humans and for animals. There's a recent report from a vet in Blackwood reporting that a dog had contracted one of these diseases, and it's just not worth taking the risk for a relatively small saving. The council want to charge £66 for people to come out. I know there are concessions for people on pension benefit and on benefits, but I think it will be there will be far less people reporting the presence of rats, and the rat population will grow, and I don't think that's a good thing. So that's the first thing. That's CS4. Second thing is the Community Empowerment Fund. Now, this is a very useful fund where a certain amount of money is allocated to each councillor. They don't spend it themselves, but they allocate it to voluntary organisations in their ward, and it's ward specific, so we all get a bite of the cherry. And we've had some really successful projects, especially where the organisation can apply to the Welsh Church Fund and community councils. I know our community council have topped up a couple of these applications, and we've had a worthwhile scheme. So I think we should keep that. And then there's, well, the third thing is enforcement officers for traffic control. They find it difficult to recruit because it's not a very nice job, telling people they're going to be fined, or telling them, you know, they might be fined for parking on double yellow lines at junctions, which is often dangerous, or near bends. And at the moment there's a vacancy, so they intend doing away with the vacancy and reducing the number of enforcement officers by one. Well, I think we need more enforcement, not less. So, you know, I don't agree with that at all. I know Mr. Harris will say that we've got to come up with ideas for producing the money. If the council drops those items, then you know, they should suggest replacements, as they did in joint scrutiny. It's not our job. It's not the job of town and community councils to provide replacements. I did offer some suggestions yesterday, and so did a couple of other members, or whenever it was we had the scrutiny, not yesterday, last week, when we had the joint scrutiny meeting. But there are alternatives to this. So I'm hoping that my items will be supported, and other people will come up with items that they think are detrimental as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think I need to respond to any of that directly. I think, as I said at the start, it's just important, obviously, those views are captured. So we'll make sure that's all recorded in the minutes and fed back to both to Cabinet accordingly in the budget consultation report.
Thank you, Steve. Councillor Howard Llewellyn.
In light of the fact that over the last few years, the borough has had to make substantial cuts to the budget, this year they will have to make substantial cuts to the budget, and you're forecasting that next year you will have to make substantial cuts to the budget. Can you give us a glimmer of hope that the management of this local authority turn this downward spiral of cuts around and start to provide service which the residents of this borough are desperate for?
I mean, I need to be careful that I don't stray into anything political here. Obviously, I have to be impartial as an officer, but these financial pressures are not just being experienced in Caerphilly, they're being experienced right across the public sector. You'll know that some local authorities have actually issued 114 notices, which means they're effectively saying they can't balance their budgets. We do have a strong record of delivering balanced budgets. I think in my introduction as well, I did say now that our reliance on temporary budget measures for 25-26 has come down significantly. So that's some positive news I can give you. However, you know, the challenges are not going to go away. As I said, it's a sectorial challenge for local government right across Wales. All local authorities are facing significant savings moving forward. But what I can do is reassure you that we will do everything we can, obviously, to identify savings moving forward. Much of this we are hoping will come through our Mobilising Team Caerphilly Transformation Programme. But, you know, I have to be honest with you and say it's going to be difficult. But what I can say is we're fully committed to turning this around, and we'll do everything we can, obviously, to produce balanced budgets moving forward.
Thank you, I hope so.
Councillor Kevin Etheridge.
Good evening. Evening, Mr. Harris. Number of points. 7.9%. I think is rather too high. I would have considered 5% being more reasonable, but I appreciate you will have to find the cost implications, and that might mean more cuts. I think we've come to a stage now where that's all we seem to have is doom and gloom. But some of these services which they're looking to review you know, like for example, the community safety wardens and the school crossing patrols. You know, these are just unacceptable if they are reduced, especially with the safety of children and the safety of antisocial behaviour throughout Caerphilly County Borough. And I believe, you know, it's a minimum amount. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, on the if they go for the reduction of school crossings and the community safety wardens. So I liked all that captured, please. But my final point is, Steve, and I'm not being political here, but do you believe in the next 12 months we will be looking at redundancies? Thank you.
There will be less posts in this organisation moving forward. I think, you know, we've been very transparent about that. You know, let's be honest, staff are the main currency in this organisation. That's where we spend a significant, or if not the largest amount of money. Communications have gone out to say, you know, that we may be looking in the order of 600 full-time equivalent job losses over the next few years. But we'll do everything to protect jobs where we can. But inevitably, if we're going to be a smaller council and if we're going to look to rely on technology to deliver services, etc., moving forward, then inevitably there will be job losses. However, we're doing everything to try and minimise the impact of that. Heads of service are currently looking at ways to release staff where staff wish to leave the organisation and there's a business case to do so. So we'll be doing that routinely moving forward. So yes, Kevin, we're going to be a smaller organisation. I don't think there's any secret in that. We've been saying that now for some time through the Mobilising Team Caerphilly programme.
Thank you.
Councillor Robert Chotwell, I'm not sure if you've got your hand up. All right, because I guess he's at your.
Teresa Parry's hand.
All right, I'll go on to Councillor Teresa Parry, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies if I keep my camera off. I'm having difficulties with the signal. Thank you, Steve Harris. I'll just make an observation firstly and go on to what I want to say. I'm really disappointed that this council are looking at cuts, staff cuts everywhere, instead of looking at increasing our income, our revenue. You know, there's empty houses that are standing empty for far too long. It's costing this council money and we're not getting the revenue in from them. So I know that's not exactly your, you know, you're not in charge of the housing, but that is one huge area. And to, you know, looking at losing staff or cutting our staff, I think we really should be looking at trying to increase our income. So there's a couple of things. The rats, I totally agree with. It's a public health issue with a cost of £66. It may inhibit people reporting because they wouldn't want to suffer the costs. And I know you can say, oh, well, we'll mean test you and we'll see whether, you know, we can reduce the money. It'll just put people off in the very first instance. So you may have a bigger problem with public health than you do at this moment. I totally agree with Kevin Etheridge, where school crossing patrols, safety of our children should be paramount. Community safety wardens also, I mean, they do a valuable job, although there's very few of them. And our enforcement officers. I am at a loss as well. The council seems to be spiralling in a downward motion instead of looking at trying to create more wealth that we can spend, whether that's in investments, where that might be your area, Steve. So can I ask, are we investing to make more money, and where are we investing?
Yes, We've got money invested, obviously, as a large council. We do get good returns on those investments. We work with Treasury Advisors, a company called Arlene Close, to make sure we're maximising the income we can achieve. And you do receive, and you will receive actually, the Treasury Management Annual Report in Council at the end of February, which will give you more information about where that money is invested. Also, income generation is one of the core principles of mobilising Team Philly. So we are looking at generating income wherever we can. So just to reassure you on that as well. And you're right, Councillor Parry, I'm not an expert on housing, but I do know that there's going to be significant focus now on addressing voids, etc. Because clearly, if we don't do that, the cost pressures of temporary accommodation will continue to rise. So, just to give you some assurance as well, that there's going to be a focus on that area moving forward. And indeed, that was raised quite strongly as well in the Joint Scrutiny Committee last week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Jo Davis.
Thank you. Quite a lot of points have already been made, which I was going to bring up. Down to the rats, and included in that as well is the increase in the pickup of items of furniture from outside properties. That is also going to encourage people to flight it. As someone pointed out to me in our pre-meeting, apparently if they dump it down in Lansbury Park, they get it taken away anyway, but that's by the board. My major concern is that I believe, and I stand corrected, that this increase of nearly 8% is one of the highest within Wales. We are asking our residents to give more, and yet we are going to expect them to take much less and less. We're asking them for increases in their leisure life as well, increases for leisure centres, football and bowling clubs having to maintain their pitches. Another concern of mine is the additional learning needs, care packages for vulnerable people and also vulnerable children. With regard to the school crossings as well, they don't apply to us, thank God, it's not Nelson, but for child safety, and same with the safety traffic enforcement. Everybody is going to get a real hard knock with this. And the consultation period, I'm hoping everybody will take part in it, because we can't expect this community to keep on getting less and less. Really, it should be reducing council tax, because you're paying for all your services, you're paying for the police. That's another story. We never see police in our meetings. You're paying for, I'm getting confused now, but there's far too many increases in charges for leisure facilities when we are looking to increase the health and well-being of the community. And I think it's about time they have another look at this. I think most of the subjects have been covered previously, and also with regard to Howard's question, how much longer must we have to? It's demoralising. I mean, I feel sorry. And with regard to the mention of redundancies, I will say here, I feel sorry for the staff and employees of Caerphilly County Borough, because they also are expected to take on more work in their department, and some of them will have less money for doing it. So in an ideal, in a company project, companies wouldn't be allowed to do things like this. So are they going to be permitted to do things like this? Things like I've just said now, doing more work and being paid less for doing more work. So I'm sorry if I've rabbited on, but everything that I wanted to say has already previously been said as well, Mr. Harris.
Okay, you've covered a lot of ground there.
I did,
and no doubt you'll be sending a written response in. So obviously we get that all recorded as part of the consultation. Just a couple of observations though. As I said, it's we're responding to the fact that we've had less and less money effectively. The problem is the funding that we've received is not increased at the same rate as costs. So inevitably, you know, we're facing gaps moving forward. But, you know, in terms of the impact on staff, we will do everything to avoid redundancies where we can. You know, this organisation has always been keen, you know, to avoid redundancies, and we'll continue to do that. But we have to accept that if we don't have sufficient funding, then we cannot continue to fund the organisation in the way that we currently do. Just a couple of other observations. The council tax increase of 7.9%. This doesn't help, I know, but just so you're aware, even with that, we will still have the lowest council tax levels in the whole of Wales, even with that increase.
Sorry, I query that.
In cash terms, what people pay for their council tax will still be the lowest in Wales, even with a 7.9% increase.
Okay, sorry.
But and I'm not saying that obviously for any political reason. I'm just saying it as a statement of fact, so everybody's aware. And you mentioned a lot of price increases, particularly in the leisure sector, etc. Well, all of that has been based on benchmarking that's been done with other authorities and with other providers. And we're looking to move ourselves into the middle of the pack, so to speak. But it hasn't just been figures that have been plotted there. It has been a lot of benchmarking work done to support those proposed increases. But they're all very valid points, and of course they will be captured, and we look forward to receiving your written submission as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, before I allow the other two councillors to come in, is there any other councillor that hasn't spoken who wants to come in now to answer the question?
I'll send through obviously detailed responses to Emma as requested. Just two quick questions regarding the cancellation of the bus services. Is that because really are cancelling the subsidies, or because Welsh Government have removed subsidies, in the first question? The second one then is regarding, just to echo the fact that I obviously support we don't remove the school crossing patrols, specifically from a school in my area called Tinnerwern. I just wondered that the people making the decisions to include that, are they aware that in my particular ward, the school crossing officer is not just crossing the children to school, he is actually enforcing the TRO that is outside the school. That creates further problems if there's nobody there to enforce that, with cars parking directly outside of the school when during crossing times there's a TRO in place for that very reason, but nobody to enforce it.
With the bus subsidy, it would be the council withdrawing the subsidy for defined services. So I believe the ones that are underutilised, the cost of the subsidy is very high, but it is the council withdrawing the subsidy, its element of the subsidy. With the TROs and the school crossing patrollers, I could pick that up for you with Marcus Lloyd, who's obviously the head of service for that area. But if you want, again, to put a written submission in, then we can pick that specific query up through that submission.
Thank you. Am I allowed to speak?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks, Steve. Bob Campbell, Risca Town Clerk. Thanks, Steve. My main point is that it's all about timing, and the 18 town and community councils that make up the county borough, we have to prepare our budgets in November and December to ratify them in January, like we have them signed off to be presented to Cyfri County Borough Council by the 31st of January, 4 days time. I can't see anything in this report, not an easy read, just the financial bit of the jargon and the despite the disappointing things in it as well. But you let us know rapidly so that if there's anything coming our way, like school crossing patrols, like car park attendants, services which may be classed as essential or even non-essential, are going to be coming our way through a delegation. Let us know rapidly so that we can build it into our own budgets for April 26 and through to 27.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. The problem we have is a number of years ago, we used to get the provisional settlement details from Welsh Government in October. That was leading up to COVID, but unfortunately, since then, we don't get the details, as I mentioned in my introduction, until mid-December. So we've got very, very little time to turn all this around. But what we're trying to do is to make budget setting, not an annual process, but it needs to be in our thinking all the time then, which is hence with a transformation program, for example, we'll be bringing reports through for decisions as we go through the year. But I pick your point up, and you know, maybe in the future it'd be useful to come to you twice a year, maybe when we do the budget, maybe at the midpoint, just to have a conversation around some of the things we're thinking about and some of the things that could potentially impact moving forward. So Emma, maybe we could pick that up as an action to have a sort of mid-year meeting as well, so we could tell you some of the things that we're thinking in terms of the savings moving forward.
It would give us a chance.
Right. Any other councillor wants to come in before I ask either no? Right, Councillor Kevin Esbridge.
Only one point, Steve. We mentioned a possibility of 600 redundancies in the future. Can I ask you, has there ever been any discussions between CMT or Cabinet about sharing a chief executive? Because obviously we are going out, and we've gone out for a new chief executive, and that's quite a considerable amount. Has there ever been any discussions about the savings we could have used with that? Because I know press articles have mentioned about Torvine and Monmouth and the Forester Dean possibly sharing chief executives and the money that would save. And I was wondering if that has been ever considered.
The only answer I can give you to that, Kevin, is I don't know whether those conversations have taken place. The only one in this region that I'm aware of currently you mentioned, and that's Torvine and Blaine Gwent, are currently looking to share their chief executive. But in terms of whether there's been any detailed consideration of that, I can't answer that question. But again, if we capture that question in the minutes, that can be responded to as part of the budget consultation.
Thank you.
Councillor, how is you going?
Yes, just one more thing. Having looked at last year's balance sheet, I tried to find out what the reserves were. Having studied it for quite a long time, could you tell me what the reserves are? I couldn't pinpoint it.
Yeah, what could be helpful to you, there was a joint scrutiny meeting last week where we provided our annual update on reserves.
All right.
So it's in that report, but just to give you the headline numbers, as at the 1st of April 2024, the audited balance on reserves was 189 million. The report that we presented last week gives all the details of why we're holding those reserves. Moving forward, we anticipate those reserves to reduce to 58 million within the next 3 years. What I will say as well is we have been using reserves in the last 2 years to help us balance the budget. So we've already taken 28 million of our reserves to help us do that. And the only amount that's truly uncommitted at the moment, i.e. not allocated for specific purposes, is around 17 million pounds. And just to put that into context, that would run this council for about 13 days. But again, I'm sure Emma could send you a copy of the report with all the details presented to the Joint Scrutiny Committee last week.
Thank you.
Councillor Judith Richard, please.
Oh, excuse me. I'm in a meeting. Sorry about that. Bad timing. Yes, about housing. I mean, Councillor Parry raised this, and there is a point that the housing account is ring-fenced. That is the rents, etc. But it will have an effect on homelessness if we have a lot of voids, because I think, and Mr. Harris will confirm this, I hope, that I haven't misunderstood, that the homelessness budget, i.e. the bed and breakfast for homeless people, that comes out of the general fund, and it's quite considerable. I think it's millions. So if we had less voids in the council estate, then some of these homeless people would be able to be housed, and wouldn't be in B&B, which would be better for them, obviously. So please can Mr. Harris confirm that the homelessness budget is coming out of the general fund?
Yeah, happy to do that. You're right. We've got a ring-fenced housing revenue account, which is funded mainly by rent, and that has to be ring-fenced by law. But homelessness does sit within the general fund. And that's why in the report, you'll see that we're having to build considerable growth into the budget to meet the cost of temporary accommodation. So there is a link between the two. If we can reduce homelessness, then obviously that would benefit the general fund as well. And as I said earlier, I'm not an expert on housing, but I know that steps are being taken to bring those numbers down wherever we can.
Thank you.
Is there any more questions or comments that other councillors wish to make? Councillor Judy Evans?
Can I just go back on, I missed it, I think. Well, two things really. Let's do the reserves first. Surely, with the situation and what we're exposing our residents throughout the borough, these cuts in everything, leisure, care packages, everything is hitting every household. Can't they consider using a bit more of this reserve money? Make yourselves, not you, Mr. Harris, because I know the position you're in, but to make the county borough look as if they're listening and caring and look after the people now. A lot of these people are going to be dead in the next 25, 26. The other thing was, with regard to that community empowerment fund, they're discontinuing it. Where will that money go? Because that community empowerment fund comes from WG, doesn't it? No.
So if I pick up your comments on reserves, I did mention we've already used £28 million worth of our reserves to help us balance the budget, and we're proposing to use another 4 in 25-26. Now, what that doesn't do is address the underlying funding gap, because you can only use the reserves once. It's like the savings, and when they're gone, they're gone. You know, you wouldn't use your reserves your savings personally to pay your mortgage. That's the sort of example I give. And we need to consider, you know, the impacts on future generations as well. If we kick the can down the road by just using reserves, that means we're just making this pushing the decision down the road as well for somebody else. And it's just not a sustainable position moving forward. We have to get to a position where we've got a balanced budget without having to call on our reserves or our savings, let's put it that way. With the Community Empowerment Fund, if the decision is made to discontinue the fund, there will be balances held within some of the wards with those haven't been committed at this point. What we will then do is give until the end of September this year for those uncommitted balances to be committed to specific projects. So there will be a window of opportunity to do that. But of course, if the decision's made to withdraw, then the budget won't be there in the future. But any underspend, there will be a period of 6 months where projects can be brought forward for consideration.
Thank you.
Councillor Teresa Barry.
Thank you, Steve, for that. I was, thank you, Chair, as well. I was going to mention the Empowerment Fund also. I think our local communities support a lot of local projects or groups, volunteer groups, and it's been very successful in a lot of areas. I know that some areas may not have used their allocation or have had difficulty using their allocation. I will give you one example, Steve. If an allotment hasn't got a lease that's more than 6 years, then they can't apply, not even for the Empowerment Fund or even for the Welsh Church Fund. So, you know, we are, we are looking at trying to sort something out, but I think this empowerment, the Empowerment Fund should continue, and rightly so. If nothing, if areas haven't used their allocation, I have no objection for them to go back into reserves. But there has to be some kind of leeway for, if you can commit the money to, say, an allotment, who are in the process of getting a lease or a license, then that should be acknowledged and ring-fenced. Can I have your thoughts, please, Steve?
Yes, this issue has been raised through the voluntary sector committee as well. What I'd suggest, Councillor Parry, if you've got a particular circumstance where the lease is proving to be problematic, you may have done this already, but if not, pick up a conversation with Ben Winstanley, and maybe Ben will be able to help find a way through it for you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further comments or questions? If not, thank you very much for everyone's contribution. The report question our comments as part of the consultation process which we are given. That closes the meeting this evening. Thank you, members, for your attendance. Webcast recording will now be stopped. Members journalists will need to leave the meeting, and for those attending in the chamber, so that is how we will have a safe journey home. Thank you for attending. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.